In 2020, following the COVID-19 pandemic, rates of intimate partner violence and domestic violence increased globally, although exact rates of domestic violence are often unknown due to many of these incidences going unreported.
It is estimated that in the United States, more than 12 million adults experience domestic violence yearly. That's approximately 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men that will experience intimate partner violence or domestic violence in their lifetime.
Locally, there was 2,508 reported victims of domestic violence in Syracuse in the year of 2021 alone.
Domestic violence can affect anyone from any age, gender, race, or sexual orientation. It may include behaviors meant to scare, physically harm, or control a partner.
And while every relationship is different, domestic violence typically involves an unequal power dynamic in which one partner tries to assert control over the other in a variety of ways.
On a typical day in New York State, 1,573 hotline contacts are received for victims in danger needing support, information, safety planning, or resources. Abusers use a variety of tactics to gain and maintain power and control in their relationships. It is important to note that abusers choose to perpetrate these acts, and those acts are not the result of their partner's behavior.
The type of abuse include, but are not limited to, physical violence can include kicking, hitting, punching, choking, pushing, withholding food, withholding a victim's medication or access to mobility or sensory-related equipment, keeping a victim from seeking necessary medical attention, and other acts that inhibit a victim's physical well-being.
Sexual abuse and coercion can include forcing the victim to engage in non-consensual sexual acts, withholding sex, refusal to practice safe sex, intentional exposure to sexually transmitted infections, tampering with or sabotaging contraception, or controlling access to health services. Emotional abuse can include name-calling, put-downs, humiliation, and other acts that seek to lower a victim's self-esteem.
Psychological abuse can include using threats, playing mind games, making the victim think that they are crazy, and other acts that instill fear on the victim.
Economic abuse can include controlling the money, bank accounts, or assets belonging to the family, not allowing the victim to work, interfering with the victim's work to the point that they lose their job, making the victim completely responsible for bringing in income to the family, and other acts that set up a financial dependence in the relationship.
Technology abuse can include the misuse of technology, like mobile devices, computers, GPS, and social media, to stalk, harass, and exert power and control of the victim.
Stalking can include repeated and unnecessary contact via text message, phone calls, email, or social media, planned appearances at places that the victim frequents, monitoring the victim's activities through the use of technology, and other acts that control a victim's movement or induce fear.
Isolation can include preventing a victim's contact with family and friends, relocating a victim to a new location where they don't know anyone, controlling a victim's interactions with people, and other acts that separate a victim from their support network.
Abusers may apologize profusely for their actions or try to convince the person they are abusing that they do these things out of love and care. However, violence and control always intensifies over time with an abuser, despite apologies.
What may start out as something that was first believed to be harmless escalates into extreme control and abuse.
In addition, domestic violence can occur in younger persons and is often referred to as teen dating violence, which impacts millions of teens in the United States. Approximately 11 million women and 5 million men who reported experiences of intimate partner violence shared that they first experienced sexual or physical violence or stalking before the age of 18.
It can take time before victims of domestic violence recognize the situation for what it is. Abuse victims can also suffer both short-term and long-term emotional and psychological effects.
Social isolation. Survivors often withdraw from social connections, including friends, family, and community activities, which can increase their vulnerability. Social isolation and a lack of support are linked to poorer health outcomes for survivors. On the other hand, social support can significantly improve mental health outcomes.
Difficulty forming friendships. The emotional and psychological toll of domestic violence often makes it challenging for survivors to trust or form new relationships. They may fear further harm or deal with the feelings of low self-worth, leading to social withdrawal and increased isolation. Difficulty in forming new relationships is more pronounced in females and individuals experiencing higher levels of depressive symptoms.
Loss of agency. Research shows that controlling behaviors by the perpetrator can create feelings of helplessness and isolation, making it difficult for survivors to access support services.
Community ostracism. In some communities, domestic violence survivors may face ostracism, blame, or harsh judgment, deepening their isolation and feelings of shame. This can occur in settings with strong traditional beliefs about gender roles or family honor, or where to seek help is stigmatized.
Employment and professional relationships. Domestic violence can hinder a survivor's work and career, leading to absenteeism, decreased productivity, or job loss. Physical health. Physical injuries. Survivors may get bruises, cuts, broken bones, and other injuries as a result of physical violence. Chronic health problems. Long-term exposure to domestic violence can lead to chronic health conditions such as chronic pain, gastrointestinal disorders, cardiovascular conditions, and gynecological problems. Domestic violence can affect reproductive health, including an increased risk of sexually transmitted infections, unwanted pregnancies, and complications during pregnancy. Substance misuse. Survivors of domestic violence may turn to alcohol or drugs as a way to cope with the trauma, leading to substance misuse issues. Sleep disturbances. Survivors may experience difficulty sleeping, including insomnia or nightmares, due to the stress and anxiety caused by domestic violence. Headaches and migraine. Stress and tension from domestic violence can contribute to frequent headaches and migraines.
Mental health. Survivors are 3 times more likely to engage in self-harming behaviors and 3 times more likely to meet criteria for mental health diagnosis. According to the American Psychiatric Association, 20% of survivors develop mental health conditions. These include major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and substance use disorders. The APA states that survivors of domestic violence may blame themselves for the abuse they received. They can become self-critical, self-destructive, and suicidal. Chronic abuse can create trauma responses that interfere with future relationships.
Violence also affects the children of those involved. According to the World Health Organization, children of people experiencing abuse are more likely to be abused. They also tend to have poorer school performance than their peers and higher rates of illness, including depression and anxiety. Children witnessed violence in nearly 1 in 4 intimate partner violence cases filed in the state courts.
Witnessing domestic abuse is considered an adverse childhood experience. Such toxic stress in early life is linked to several negative health outcomes in adulthood, ranging from depression and substance use disorder to diabetes and heart disease.
Children who grow up in the presence of domestic violence are more likely to experience it themselves once they reach adulthood. Boys from such environments are more likely to become perpetrators of violence, while girls are more likely to become victimized in adulthood.
Children who witness or experience domestic violence are likely to develop behavioral and emotional problems such as anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Children may develop coping mechanisms such as withdrawal, behavioral difficulties, and trouble with emotional regulation.
Children who have been exposed to domestic violence may be more likely to become victims or perpetrators of abuse in adulthood. Developing resilience is a key factor in recovering from domestic violence. With the right help and strong support system, children can learn to heal and grow.
If you are experiencing domestic violence, you are not alone. For anonymous, confidential help available 24/7, please call the National Domestic Violence 24-Hour Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or 1-800-787-3224. The National Deaf Hotline video phone, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, 1-855-812-1001 or deafhelp@thehotline.org. The New York State Domestic Violence 24-hour hotline, English and multi-language accessibility, 1-800-942-6906 or 711 for deaf or hard of hearing. For services in Onondaga County, call 211 or visit 211cny.com. The YWCA for non-residential domestic violence services, 315-424-0040. The Salvation Army non-residential domestic violence services, 315-565-7369. Vera House residential and non-residential services, 315-468-3260.